Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Caris May, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Navy is Commander Paul Mogger. We warmly welcome the family of Private Alexander Thomas Johnston, whose story will be read shortly. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria and RSL Queensland who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony from around Australia. During the ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by family, visitors and students on behalf of the following schools. From New South Wales, Hamilton Public School and Mimi Public School, and from Western Australia, Valdivia Secondary College. To commence this evening's ceremony, I invite you all stand and join in singing the National Anthem. Thank you, boys and girls. You may now be seated. The Australian War Memorial was a vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn their loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed at the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and other operations for over more than a century. But first we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths and floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Private Alexander Thomas Johnston. Known as Alexander Johnston was born in Sydney in December 1894 to William and Margaret Johnston. He had 6 sisters and 4 brothers. Johnston grew up in the Rocks district and attended Fort Street Public School in Millers Point. After leaving school, he went to work for the publishing department of the Sydney Morning Herald as a brass polisher. He also served in his local militia unit. After the outbreak of the First World War, Johnston enlisted for service with the AIF on the 3rd of November 1914. After his initial training, he was allotted to the 2nd Reinforcements for the 3rd Battalion. In February 1915, Johnston embarked for Egypt aboard the transport ship Siang B. Once there, it wasn't long before he was sent to join the 3rd Battalion at Lemnos Island as it prepared for the Gallipoli campaign. Johnston landed on Gallipoli with the 3rd Battalion between 7 and 8 a.m. on the morning of the 25th of April. He survived the chaotic first weeks of the campaign and assisted in holding the Australian positions against Turkish counterattacks. Gallipoli quickly became a stalemate. In August, an offensive was planned to attempt a breakout from the Anzac beachhead. In the evening of the 6th of August, the 3rd Battalion was in the first wave over the top to attack Lone Pine. In some areas, the Australians were forced to run over Turkish trenches roofed with logs, fighting their way into the Stygian darkness of the Turkish front line. Over 3 days of constant fighting, Lone Pine became choked with corpses, and Johnston was killed in action. He was buried at Lone Pine on the 11th of August. He was 20 years old. Like many others buried at Lone Pine, without a known grave, Johnston was accorded a headstone with his full regimental details and the inscription believed to be buried in this cemetery. 2 of Johnston's younger brothers also served in the AIF, enlisting in the years following their brother's death. Both returned home. Johnston's name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, among more than 60,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. His photograph is displayed by the Pool of Reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private Alexander Thomas Johnston, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Boys and girls, could you please stand for the ode and last post?
They shall grow not old, as we who are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of Memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Posier or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes this evening's last post ceremony. We would like to thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today, and we wish you all a very good evening. Thank you.